Actually, I just remember it down. So we shall start one question by one question, and I shall walk through each question in turn. First, with the different stages of the procurement cycle. Sorry, my apologies, but I could not get exact information on what is the question specifically, like what stages are asked, or um, whether you can choose random five stages for this question. Anyway, then SIP procurement cycle is kind of like a requirement when you are taking L4M8 exam, and you may need to note this before sitting March 2025 exam. So it's kind of like one of the two most common topics in L4M8 exam, and therefore you need to learn by heart the whole cycle, which consists of 13 stages. And for each stage, if you want to describe them, especially when it comes to the question that requires you to describe five random stages, you need to specify the purpose of that stage and the activities that procurement undertake in that stage, at that stage, and potentially the added value of the stage that may bring. So the first job here is that you need to learn by heart all of these 30 stages. There's no other choice. Okay, so try to do your best. And second, when it comes to each stage, then you can follow some kind of like framework, like I what I'm doing on my presentation here. I am giving you a few examples of how to describe certain stages from the procurement cycle. Here on the screen, you can see that I'm describing stage number 7, number 8, number 9, and 11. So stage number 7 is about send or issue the bid or tender to the supplier. Here, then we have a purpose and we have a list of activities. Like the purpose is to inform the supplier about the opportunity and also to secure some kind of fairness or equity within the competition. We want to have a fair, open, and genuine competition. And second, with this stage, you also need to describe the actions that need to be undertaken. So at stage number 7, although it is very simple, just send the documents to the supplier. But you need to follow some standards, like you need to send the same set of documents at the same time to every supplier, so that they can feel they are treated equally and there's no um, favoritism and for any supplier, for any supplier. With stage number 8, it is about bid and tender evaluation and validation. So the purpose of this stage is to find out which bid or tender that offers the best value for money. And we do that by close examination and assessment of the bid. We only assess a bid after the deadline and apply the criteria that we have set out in earlier stages, like stage number 5. At stage number 9, that is contract award and implementation. So here, we want to conclude the contract and negotiate with the supplier and get better result or better value for money. So the action here is to follow the process, follow the due diligence, and negotiate with the supplier. And if we fail to conclude the contract with this supplier, then we can turn into the second ranking supplier or third ranking supplier, and until we find and we can conclude a contract with the supplier. And with stage number 11, it is about contract performance measurement and improvement. With this stage, then we need to secure or ensure the contract performance and ensure that the supplier needs to deliver what they are required to do. And therefore, we need to apply some methods here, like using the KPIs or SLA. Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ilma, for specific scenario here. Okay, so let me publish the question onto the screen and have you to solve this question. Right, this is the question that Ilma is suggesting, and maybe she was taking the exam in November. Okay, so we have a scenario about purchasing IT equipment for surgery for a public hospital. And there were issues with the specification and incomplete supply. The question was to explain how any of these of the five, okay, of the SIP procurement cycle would have solved the above issues. Okay, so they have very specific problems like issues with the specification and incomplete supply. All right, so I think from my own opinion, then we can pick the following five stages. First, of course, I would like to have the defining needs here. Second, I would like to have develop documentation and detailed specification. So stage number 1, number 5, and number 6, supplier selection. And then number 11 and 12. Okay, so that is my pick. But you can choose any other. Like you can choose like number 3, 5, 8, 11, for example, or even 10. Okay, so we have very specific problem within the scenario. Actually, then within this procurement cycle, then some certain stages can address the problem directly. Like with the problem from the specification, we can address that with stage number 1, where we can try to define the needs and collaborate with different stakeholders about the specification and the features that the equipment should have. And the second and the second problem with the incomplete supply, we can do that. We can solve the problem from several stages, like stage number 5, where we can specify the contract terms for delivery. Stage number 6, where we filter out the most competent supplier. Stage number 8, like we can award the contract to the most competent and with the largest with the largest capability, supplier with the largest capability. Or with stage number 11, where we can manage the contract and uh, incentivize or disincentivize certain behaviors. Or stage number 12, where we can engage with the supplier and require them to do better, and of course with some benefit as well. So with the problem listed from scenario, then you can choose those stages. But if you have any different opinion, then you are free to write your own. First of all, you can also write about market analysis here. Like they need to analyze the market and identify the competition and study more about the specification and product features from market analysis. That is another approach. Right. So with this kind of question, then you have the freedom to choose any 5 stages. But the thing is, you need to link with the scenario and address the problem within the scenario. As long as you can prove that the stages that you choose address the problem directly, then your answer would be rewarded handsomely. Okay, and furthermore, with each stage, remember that you need to write about the purpose, the connection with scenario, and the activities that procurement need to undertake to deliver the result. Okay, so that is question number one about the procurement cycle. And now they have a scenario and require you to apply the procurement cycle to solve the problem. Now, let's walk into question number two about the financial ratios. With question number two, then I have a little bit more information here. Um, I can say that we have apply a short scenario with a table of data, a table of financial data. And the requirement here is to analyze and assess assess the financial performance from 5 sectors. Okay, so you have a lot of things to calculate, right? But fortunately, on the exam screen, they still have a calculator at the top of the screen, on the top right corner, right here, like around this. All right, so you don't need to be worried about the calculation. Okay, actually they are quite simple. Here, I just need to remind you about a few financial ratios and formulas. Uh, According to my experience, then they mostly ask about the liquidity ratios and profitability ratio. So you need to remember some formulas like as am showing on my screen here. We have the current ratio. We can take the current assets divided by the current liabilities, that is the current ratio. With a quick ratio, we have on the denominator, that is the difference between the current assets and inventory, and then divided by the current liabilities. With gearing, we have a few formulas, but and you can choose any of them. We can have the total assets divided by the total liabilities, or we can have the equity divided by the difference between total assets and current liabilities. With profitability ratios, then we have a few ratio here, like a few margin ratio, like gross profit margin. That is equal to the gross profit divided by revenue, or the difference between sales and the cost of sale divided by sales, right? With operating profit margin, we have the gross profit removing uh, administrative administrative costs and depreciation, amortization, and then divided by sales. Or net profit equal to the operating profit removing taxes and interest divided by sales. Okay, so the calculation actually quite easy as long as you can recall the you can recall the formula. But I believe that most of the question or most of the score is about how to comment and recommend the on each supplier here. So I have a few tips for you. For each ratio, like current ratio or gross profit margin, you need to have a healthy threshold in your mind, okay, and compare the result from supplier with that threshold. Like for current ratio, the threshold should be like 1. Lower than 1 is unhealthy, and higher than 1 is higher than 1 is healthy, and lower than 1 is unhealthy. Similarly, with the gross profit margin, then about 50 or 60%. Okay, so under that threshold is unhealthy, but above is or equal to that level is quite healthy. And furthermore, we have 5 suppliers. Therefore, we can calculate and compare the ratio all together. We can compare their current ratio together, or gross profit margin together, or quit ratio together, or gearing together. And any of the supplier who stand out could be recommended for the contract. However, then it is not enough to just consider the ratio only. If the scenario provides some more information, like supplier A could have recently invested in a fixed machine, or in an expensive piece of equipment, then they may have very low current ratio because they just pay out some money to the supplier, to their supplier, to get that equipment. But it does not mean that they have some problem, because they just invest, then they have a great capacity. So it is fair to consider the external factor as well. All right, but we only consider that if the question suggests there are some external factors, and normally then we can just rely on the healthy threshold and the comparison with the previous performance, or with other competitors. That is enough for assessment of the supplier here. So we could do this simply by writing like the threshold, the current ratio for supplier A is like 1.1, and that is healthy, and this supplier has enough access to pay off their short-term liabilities, and of course they can take on the project with the buyer. But possible supplier B has the current ratio or quick ratio like 0.6, it means that they don't have enough assets to pay off their liabilities. So they may have some difficulties in the short term regarding paying off the liabilities, and they may not take on more projects. Therefore, they need to be disqualified for this contract. And etc. So depending on each ratio and the result they get, then we can have different comment on their performance and recommendation, like whether we should qualify them, whether they should be given some opportunity to bid for the contract, or should they be disqualified for the contract. Right. So thank you, Yuma, for the information. Question number 2 has a table that shows operating profit, current ratio, and gearing ratio of the 5 suppliers in only the percentage. So the ratio for each supplier would be analyzed without comparing. Okay, so this is more specific. If the table already show the ratio, already show the result, then our job here is to analyze their performance, and not to consider about calculating the ratio anymore. If this is the question, then I think I must focus my effort here on the on the implication of each ratio. So according to information I have here, for example, we have the current ratio. Then current ratio is a ratio about how well or yeah how well a supplier can pay off their short-term debt and whether they can take on another project or another sale order to yeah expand their operations. If the current ratio is greater than one, then it shows that they have some kind of like excess current assets, excess short-term assets to expand their operations, okay, temporarily. And it shows that their performance is healthy. Second, we have the operating profit margin. So operating profit margin is the right a ratio between the operating profit and the um, revenue. So operating profit is the profit before interest and taxes, right? So it kind of like an indicator of how well this supplier is managing its cost and whether we can discuss some of the discount like because they are profitable because they have very high profit margin, so we can ask for a little discount if they are selling to us, right? um as long as the operating profit margin stay positive, then it is quite healthy, and especially if they have capitalized some number like 20 or right 10 or 20 or 30%, then absolutely that is healthy. uh However, if the operating profit margin is negative, then we should be careful because the supplier here is operating at a loss. So we may need to consider about their suitability in the contract. But one more point, even if their operating profit margin is high, but it doesn't mean that they have healthy performance. Sometimes profit margin could be generated by selling their fixed assets or by using gearing or leverage to boost their profit margin. So we also need to consider other ratio as well. And finally, we have the gearing ratio. Um, Depending on the type gearing, like they can use like total debt on total equity or total debt on total assets or total assets on total debt, etc. So depending on the number, then we may have different ratio. The golden result here or the golden threshold here is that the debt should be less than the equity. They should have less debt than equity, or their debt should be like under 50% of the total assets. It means that they have enough total assets. Sorry, they have enough equity to cover the debt, even if the debt come into kind of like uh they have effect immediately. Okay, so if the debt smaller than equity, then it is healthy. But if the debt is greater than equity, then this supplier could have some problems with paying off the debt in the long run. So if the gearing ratio is high, like more debt than equity, then the higher the worse. They may have some problem with paying off the debt in the long run, and that may risk they may risk insolvency and they may face bankruptcy in the future. Okay, so the question here doesn't require you to calculate the result, but it requires you to interpret the result from the table. That is another approach from Cips. When it comes to question number 3 about the whole life cycle costing, then the question here, it's just like about 5 costs within this model. And to write the answer, then you can divide the whole life cost into 5 elements like acquisition, operations, maintenance, financing, and end-of-life cost. So under each element, then there will be some further cost like the under acquisition we have the purchase price, we have the insurance, delivery, or installation. Under operation, we have the wages for the operator or the consumables or the fuels for the assets. Under maintenance, then we have the cost of maintenance like the cost for schedule or uh, or schedule servicing or corrective maintenance or the cost for the downtime of the machine. With the end of life, then we have the cost for decommissioning, disposal, and potentially some revenue from the sale of the assets. Sometimes, if we have luck or if we maintain the assets well, we can totally sell the assets for further value. And when I mentioned about financing, then it means the cost for paying the interest or the fees regarding purchasing the assets. Like we could not like purchase the assets outright with our own money, but sometimes we need to borrow from the bank, and such borrowing may carry some interest or fees. Therefore, financing is about paying off some of the financial costs like interest. So with question number 3, I don't think that there would be much of trouble for many students here. Really quite predictable and very regular question. And finally, with question number 4, of course, they still have a scenario, and they and the question asks students to um, suggest 5 ways, or yeah, 5 ways to improve suppliers' ESG performance or to ensure supplier ESG performance, their compliance to ESG standards. With this question, then we have the freedom to write anything that you can think of. And I think since the question only suggests 5 actions, so we may list like 5. Okay, so there are a few options here that you may that I may suggest you. All right, first of all, first we can implement the code conduct and make it a part of the contract. So make it a part of the contract and try a way to enforce the code conduct. They need to follow the standards like what we are doing and require them to commit to those standards. And of course, we also need to have the enforcement, like we need to have the remedy or yeah, some penalty for non-commitment or for the breach of the code conduct. Second, another way to enforce the ESG standards is to have regular audit and assessment, and especially when the supplier is from overseas. So we may need to contract a third-party auditor to ensure their compliance to the standard here. And the result from audit should be reviewed and recommend with the supplier. Like if they are weak at certain areas, then we may suggest some solution and have the corrective action plan, clear corrective action plan. If they don't follow those steps, then we can implement further remedy or further um, penalty like terminate the contract. Another way is another way to enforce ESG standard is through KPI and the balance scorecard. The scorecard is like a system for managing the performance, just like KPI, but it is more systematic. We can like focus on the four perspectives or the four pillars of performance, for key areas of performance. And then for each areas, then we can list like 3, 4, 5 KPIs or measures. And all of these measures or performance should be the data about performance should be aggregated and summarized and make a regular report. So from month to month or from quarter to quarter, we always have the data on their performance. Okay. Again, thank you, Yuma, for more detailed information. So with question number 3, of course, we have the 5 highlight cost and apart from purchasing price. So I think that they mean we need to list the how like we need to have the cost like except the purchase price here, and you can focus on any of the costs like the small bullet point here. Okay, we can focus on the small bullet points rather than and other than the purchase price. So very straightforward and I think a very regular question. Now, let's come back to our discussion about the ESG practice. I'm talking about the scorecard. So scorecard is a way to manage the performance, and we may track their performance from time to time and provide feedback and encourage on the improvement. Another way to enforce ESG is through training. So maybe sometimes supplier doesn't know how to improve their ESG practice. So we may have the training and bridge the gap between their current capability and our wanted capability. And here it comes with the gap analysis, and it also requires the commitment from the buyer, which may provide the resources to support the supplier. If you want to be more collaborative, then we can have the partnership with the supplier. Like we can establish the a mechanism uh, to improve supplier performance. Like we can have a joint project like to improve their performance, like about improve the impact on the local farmers' life. That kind of initiative would require us to have cross-organizational working and common objective. Therefore, from that, then we can gradually improve their impact on the local community or on the environment. And one of the final suggestion here is about implement some mechanism for incentivize or disincentivize certain behaviors. Like we can provide the reward or penalty system for any complaints or any breach of the contract. Okay, and I hope that, yeah, right, that's correct. Okay, so maybe my information is incomplete and also incorrect. And luckily, I have Irma here. Actually, she said that question number 4 was about sourcing a supplier abroad that would supply cardboard for making boxes. The question was about analyzing 5 ESG consideration in pre-qualifying the supplier. Okay, so it's very different from what I'm showing here. I mean, like really about to improve the ESG performance of current supplier, the supplier that you already have the contract with. But if the question is like what Ilma is suggesting, then the answer would be very different. So question number 4 here is about the uh, criteria for assessment when we are pre-qualifying the supplier. Okay, 5 ESG consideration. Okay, so with the consideration here, then we can be specific about the criteria, like their possible. Again, we can use the uh code conduct. Right. Let me show you how to write those criteria. Okay, so here we need to have the right ESG consideration when pre-qualifying supplier. And we may have 5 considerations. First, their code conduct, current code of conduct, like what kind of behavior they are required to do, what they are not required to do. Whether they have a code conduct or if they don't have one, then do they have any guiding principle or do they have any uh, corporate social responsibility policy? Okay, that is another consideration. Third, there are media recent media reports on supplier performance or impact on environment. Okay, fourth, we can rely on their certification or accreditation from um, from trusted organization like uh, ISO or Fair Trade, for example. Yeah, that is 4. And finally, we have the possible the social impact. Like, let me think. The reference or feedback from other buyer. Also, there are reported performance like recent emission or waste measurement. Like they can make their own report. They can make their own report about their recent performance, especially regarding environmental one or social one. Okay, so it is like the consideration when it comes to pre-qualifying or selecting the supplier. Then this one, then we don't have any contract with this supplier and we don't have any experience with them, except that we need to ask them and ask them like how to disclose their policy regarding code conduct or regarding CSR policies. And we may also find the recent reports, media report, or um, the label report or the court report about their performance or about their process of litigation, whether they have any conflict or any problems with the workers or with the local community regarding environment. And we can rely our assessment on certain certification or accreditation, or we can do some kind of like site visit, direct visit. Okay, see whether they are how they are managing their performance, and whether it is good or good enough in our standard. Okay, so there are a few ways to pre-qualifying a supplier based on the questionnaire or based on our own investigation. And especially when it comes to pre-qualifying them before decide to invite them into the tendering. Okay, so there are the four questions from L4M8, and I think although we could not collect the very exact information, but at least I try my best to convey the uh, how to solve this question. Irma, I don't say anything about access cannibalization. Okay, that is nonsense. You can have like sometimes I may speak too fast and the caption may capture it wrong. But you can see my suggestion on the screen here. Okay, so as you know, we organize regular events on the different SIP modules and have the student to pass the exam with the first attempt. And if you want to support us, then we have a few practice questions on Udemy. You can apply the code on my screen here, SIP DEC24. That is the code for special price. Oh, yeah. There's nothing as cannibalization. It is we have the decommissioning, disposal, or resale. That is the cost regarding the end of life. And if you are talking about the question number three, then it kind of like you need to write five costs except the purchase price, other than the purchase price. When it comes to when it comes to uh, the whole life or total cost ownership, and you can list any of five costs from this list. And remember that we only consider about the bullet points here. And with the end of life cost, we have decommissioning, disposal, or potentially some revenue from the resale of the parts or the assets. All right, so that's all for L4M8, especially for the question that came in November 2024. Yeah, Ilma, you are attending them. And I don't say anything about access cannibalization. Anything is Everything is written here. Okay, clearly. Sometimes maybe the closed caption catch it wrong. All right. So I would love to see you again. And if you have any question, just contact us on WhatsApp or we have an email here. All right. And next week we may do another session on L4M1. So enjoy your holiday and wish you the best with the March exam. Goodbye.